Long, long ago, people lived near the East Mediterranean Sea. The East Mediterranean Sea is a large sea between Europe, Asia, and Africa. Many lands are near this sea. Greece is on one side. Crete is an island in the sea. Asia Minor is on another side. Egypt and the Near East are also not far away. Around 3000 BCE, a new Bronze Age civilization began near the East Mediterranean Sea. We call it the Aegean civilization. The Aegean Sea is between Greece and Asia Minor. Many islands are in this sea. The people of the Aegean civilization lived on islands and on the land near the sea. The Aegean civilization was not only one city or one people. It was a name for several cultures near the Aegean Sea. These people had boats. They went over the sea. They met people from other lands. They bought and sold goods. They learned new ideas. They also made new things by themselves. The people of the Aegean civilization felt the influence of the Orient. The Orient means the lands east of Greece, such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Near East. These lands had old cities, strong kings, writing, trade, and many skilled workers. People in the Aegean area saw goods and ideas from these lands. For example, people from the Aegean area saw fine cups, gold, silver, cloth, and tools from the Orient. They also saw big buildings, art, and writing. They did not copy everything in the same way. They made their own culture. Still, the influence of the Orient was important. The Bronze Age was a time when people used bronze. Bronze is a hard metal. It is made from copper and tin. Bronze was useful for knives, swords, tools, and other things. Before the Bronze Age, people often used stone tools. Bronze tools were stronger than stone tools. However, bronze was not easy to make. People needed copper and tin. These metals did not always come from the same place. So trade was very important. Ships carried metal, food, cloth, oil, wine, and beautiful things across the sea. The sea was very important to the Aegean people. The sea gave them fish. The sea also gave them roads for ships. A ship could go from one island to another island. It could go from Crete to Greece, from Greece to Asia Minor, and from the Aegean area to Egypt. Today, the sea can look calm and blue. In the past, it was also beautiful, but it could be dangerous. There were storms. There were strong winds. A small boat could be lost. Still, people used boats because the sea connected many places. Around 2000 BCE, a great civilization grew on Crete. We call it the Minoan civilization. Crete is a large island south of the Greek mainland. It has mountains, fields, rivers, and a long coast. Its place in the sea helped its people trade with many lands. The Minoan civilization was strong from about 2000 BCE to about 1400 BCE. This was a long time. During these years, people on Crete built large places, made fine art, used writing, and sent ships over the sea. We do not know exactly who the Minoan people were. Their ethnic line is unclear. An ethnic line means the people from whom a group came. We do not know their first home. We do not know what language they spoke with full certainty. We know many things about their life, but some important things are still unknown. The name Minoan comes from Minos. In later Greek stories, Minos was a king of Crete. These stories talk about a great palace, a strange maze, and a creature called the Minotaur. The Minotaur was said to be half man and half bull. These stories are famous, but they are stories, not simple history. The real Minoan people left many things for us to see. They made houses, roads, storage rooms, pots, cups, pictures, tools, and jewelry. They built large palace centers. These places tell us that Minoan life was rich and active. One important Minoan place was Knossos. Knossos was near the north coast of Crete. It was a very large palace center. There were many rooms, stairs, halls, storage places, and workrooms. It was not one small house for one family. It was a center for many people and many kinds of work. At Knossos, people stored food in large jars. These jars were very big. They held oil, grain, wine, and other goods. Olive oil was important. Grapes were also important for wine. Grain was important because people needed bread and other food. The palace at Knossos was a place for work, trade, storage, religion, and rule. Important people may have lived there. Workers made things there. Other people brought goods there. People may have had religious events there too. The Minoan people made beautiful wall pictures. These pictures are called frescoes. A fresco is a picture made on a wet wall. When the wall becomes dry, the picture stays. Minoan frescoes show flowers, fish, birds, people, ships, and bulls. Bulls were important in Minoan art. In some pictures, young people jump over a bull. This was a very dangerous act. We do not know exactly why they did it. It may have been part of a religious event or a special game. The Minoan people loved color in their art. They used blue, red, black, white, and yellow. Their pictures often show movement. Fish seem to swim. People seem to run or dance. The art gives us a feeling of life near the sea. The Minoan civilization was a sea civilization. Its people used ships often. They traded with Egypt, Cyprus, the Near East, and the Greek mainland. They sent goods out, and they brought goods in. Trade helped Crete become rich. Minoan ships may have carried oil, wine, pots, cloth, and fine art. In return, they may have received metal, stone, gold, ivory, and other useful things. Ivory came from the teeth of large animals, such as elephants. It was rare and beautiful. Crete did not have many city walls around its palace centers. This is an important point. In many old lands, cities had high walls because people feared attack. Walls helped protect people from enemy armies. But the main centers of the Minoan civilization did not have strong city walls. This may show that the Minoan civilization had a peaceful sea character. The sea may have helped protect Crete. An enemy army had to cross the sea before it could attack. Also, the Minoan people may have had strong ships. If they had many ships, they could protect their sea area. Some people call this sea power. A group with sea power can control important sea roads. We must be careful, however. No city walls do not always mean that there was no danger. The Minoan people may still have had enemies. They may still have had soldiers and weapons. But the lack of city walls gives us an image of a society that was not always afraid of land attack. The palace centers of Crete were open in a way that many later castles were not. They had large open areas. People could gather there. There may have been games, dances, religious events, and trade. The Minoan people had skilled workers. Some made pots, some made metal tools, some made jewelry from gold and silver. Some made cloth, some painted walls, some built houses and palaces. A rich civilization needs many kinds of workers. Farmers were also important. They grew grain, olives, grapes, and other plants. They raised sheep and goats. Farmers gave food to the towns and palace centers. Without farmers, palace life could not continue. The Minoan civilization used a form of writing called linear A. The word linear means that the signs look like lines. Linear A has many signs. Some signs may stand for sounds. Some signs may stand for things or ideas. We can read some signs of linear A, but we cannot fully understand it. It is not fully decoded. To decode a writing system means to learn what the signs mean and how the language works. Linear A is still a great question for historians. Many linear A records were written on clay tablets. A tablet is a small flat piece of clay. A person could press signs into wet clay with a small tool. Then the clay could dry and become hard. The tablets were probably used for daily palace work. They may list food, animals, workers, goods, or taxes. But because linear A is not fully decoded, we cannot read all the details. We can see the signs, but we cannot understand all their words. In the early 20th century, a British archaeologist named Arthur Evans worked at Knossos. An archaeologist is a person who studies the past by finding old things in the ground. Archaeologists look for ruins, tools, pots, bones, walls, and writing. Arthur Evans began to dig at Knossos in the early 1900s. He found the ruins of the Great Palace. This was a very important discovery. Before this work, people knew old Greek stories about Crete and Minos, but they did not know the full story of the Minoan civilization. Evans found many rooms, stairs, storage places, frescoes, jars, and clay tablets. His work showed the world that a great civilization had lived on Crete, long before the time of classical Greece. Some parts of the palace at Knossos that visitors see today were rebuilt by Arthur Evans and his workers. He wanted people to understand how the palace may have looked. Some people think that he rebuilt too much. They say that it is hard to know what was old and what was new. Even so, Arthur Evans was very important. His work helped many people learn about the Minoan civilization. Knossos became one of the best-known old places in the Aegean world. Life in the Minoan world was not simple. There were rich people and poor people. There were palace workers, farmers, fishers, sailors, artists, and leaders. There may have been a king or queen, but we do not know exactly how the government worked. We can see pictures of women in Minoan art. Some women wear beautiful clothes and jewelry. Women may have had important parts in religious life. However, pictures cannot tell us everything. We should not make a story that is too sure. The Minoan civilization became weak after many years. There may have been several reasons. Crete is near an area with earthquakes. An earthquake can break houses, walls, and roads. It can kill people and destroy fields. There was also a very large volcano on an island called Thera, or Santorini. A volcano can send fire, smoke, ash, and rock into the sky. The Thera volcano had a great eruption. This eruption may have hurt Minoan trade and life. Ash from a volcano can cover fields. It can make farming hard. A great sea wave can also come after an eruption or earthquake. Such a wave can break ships and harm towns near the coast. Still, the Minoan civilization did not end in one day. It changed over time. Some places were rebuilt. But, after about 1400 BCE, the Minoan civilization was no longer the strongest power in the Aegean area. While the Minoan civilization grew on Crete, another civilization grew on the Greek mainland. Around 1600 BCE, Greek-speaking people called the Achaeans moved south. They came into the land of Greece and built strong, small kingdoms. The Achaeans are an important group in early Greek history. They were Greek people. They lived on the mainland, especially in the Peloponnese. The Peloponnese is a large land area in southern Greece. It is almost an island, but it is connected to the mainland by a narrow piece of land. The Achaeans built the Mycenaean civilization. This name comes from Mycenae, one of their most important cities. Mycenae was in the Peloponnese. It stood on a hill. From the hill, people could see the land around it. The Mycenaean civilization was different from the Minoan civilization. The Minoan world was centered on Crete and the sea. The Mycenaean world was centered on strong palace cities on the mainland. The Mycenaean kings had great power. Mycenae had huge stone walls. The stones were very large. Later Greek people thought that normal humans could not move such great stones. They said that giant one-eyed men called Cyclopes built the walls. For this reason, people sometimes call them Cyclopean walls. The walls of Mycenae show that the Mycenaean people feared attack. Their world was not as open as the Minoan palace centers of Crete. Mycenaean cities were often strong hill forts. A fort is a place built for defense. Inside the walls, there was a palace. The palace was the center of the kingdom. The king lived there or ruled from there. Important workers also worked there. Goods came to the palace. Orders went out from the palace. Mycenae was not the only Mycenaean kingdom. There were many small kingdoms. Each kingdom had its own king and palace center. Some important places were Tiryns, Pylos, Thebes, and other towns. Tiryns was south of Mycenae. It was also famous for huge stone walls. Tiryns had a palace inside a strong fort. Its walls were so large that they still surprise people today. The Mycenaean Greeks built many small kingdoms, not one big country. A king ruled each kingdom. Sometimes the kingdoms may have worked together. At other times, they may have fought each other. Small kingdoms often wanted more land, more goods, or more power. The king in a Mycenaean kingdom had fairly great power. He was not only a person who lived in a beautiful palace. He was important in war, trade, farming, religion, and the collection of goods. The Mycenaean system is called palace kingship. Palace kingship means that the palace and the king were at the center of the kingdom. Farmers and workers gave part of their goods to the palace. The palace stored these goods and gave goods to workers, soldiers, and important people. For example, farmers grew grain, olives, grapes, and other food. They may have given some of this food to the palace. People also gave animals, cloth, metal, and other things. The palace kept records of these goods. The king needed goods because he had to support many people. He needed workers to make tools and weapons. He needed soldiers to fight. He needed people to build walls and ships. He needed religious workers for events and gifts to the gods. The palace was like the heart of the kingdom. Food and goods came into it. Orders and goods went out from it. If the palace was strong, the kingdom could be strong. If the palace was destroyed, the kingdom could become weak very quickly. The Mycenaean people were good at war. They used bronze swords, spears, and shields. They had chariots. A chariot is a small cart with wheels, pulled by horses. Chariots could move fast over flat land. Mycenaean kings wanted gold and fine goods. They had rich graves. In some graves, archaeologists found gold masks, gold cups, swords, and jewelry. These things show that some kings and rich people had great wealth. The Mycenaean people also had skilled workers. They made pots, metal things, cloth, and art. Their pots have been found in many places near the Mediterranean Sea. This shows that Mycenaean trade was wide. At first, the Mycenaean Greeks learned much from the Minoan civilization. They saw Minoan art, ships, trade, palace life, and writing. They took some Minoan ideas and changed them for their own world. One very important example is Linear B. The Mycenaean people made Linear B after learning from Linear A. Linear B is also a writing system with signs. Many signs stand for syllables. A syllable is a small sound part of a word. For example, the word mother has two sound parts, mo and thur. Linear B signs could show sound parts like this. Linear B was used by the Mycenaean Greeks. It was used mainly for palace records. People wrote it on clay tablets. The tablets often list goods, workers, animals, land, and religious gifts. For a long time, no one could read Linear B. People found the tablets, but the signs were a mystery. Then, in 1952, a British man named Michael Ventris helped decode Linear B. Michael Ventris was not an old university teacher when he began this work. He was very interested in old writing. He studied the signs carefully. He looked for patterns. He asked what language the signs might show. Ventris found that Linear B showed an early form of Greek. This was a very important discovery. It showed that Greek-speaking people lived in the Mycenaean world much earlier than many people had thought. Other scholars also helped with the work of reading Linear B. But Michael Ventris is one of the best-known names. His work changed the study of early Greece. Because Linear B can be read, we know more about Mycenaean palace life than we know about Minoan palace life. Linear B tablets tell us about grain, oil, sheep, workers, cloth, metal, and religious gifts. However, Linear B tablets do not tell us everything. They are mostly short palace records. They do not tell long stories about families, love, games, or daily feelings. They are often lists, not books. Still, these lists are very useful. A list of sheep tells us that sheep were important. A list of cloth tells us that cloth workers were important. A list of oil tells us that olive trees and oil were important. The Mycenaean Greeks used the sea too. They had ships and traded with other lands. They went to Crete, the islands, Cyprus, Egypt, and the Near East. They also went to the west coast of Asia Minor. The Greek people spread their power to Troy. Troy was on the northwest coast of Asia Minor. Its place was very important. It was near sea roads between the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea area. A city in such a place could control trade. Ships passing near Troy might need help, food, water, or safe travel. Troy could become rich because of its good place. Troy is also famous because of the Trojan War story. In later Greek stories, Greek kings sailed to Troy and fought a long war. The story says that the war began because of Helen, a beautiful woman. According to the story, Paris of Troy took Helen from Greece. Her husband was Menelaus. Menelaus asked other Greek kings to help him. Agamemnon, king of Mycenae in the story, led the Greek army. The Greek story says that the war lasted 10 years. The Greeks could not take Troy by force. Then they made a great wooden horse. Some Greek soldiers hid inside the horse. The Greeks left the wooden horse near Troy and sailed away where the Trojans could not see them. The Trojans thought the horse was a gift. They took it into their city. At night, the Greek soldiers came out of the horse. They opened the city gates. The Greek army came back and entered Troy. In the story, Troy was destroyed. This is a famous story, but historians ask an important question. Did the Trojan War really happen in this way? We do not know. There may have been real fighting near Troy. There may have been more than one war. But the wooden horse story may not be simple fact. Stories can keep memories of old events. They can also change over hundreds of years. A true place may become part of a great story. A real war may become a story about heroes, gods, and strange acts. The Greek poet Homer told famous stories about the Trojan War. The Iliad is about part of the war. The Odyssey is about the long trip home of Odysseus after the war. These poems were written down much later than the Mycenaean age. Homer's poems are very important for Greek culture, but they are not palace records from Mycenae. They mix memories of the past with stories from later times. We must read them with care. In the 19th century, a German archaeologist named Schliemann became very interested in Troy and Mycenae. He believed that the stories of Homer had some truth in them. Schliemann dug at the site of Troy in Asia Minor. He found the ruins of many old cities, one under another. This was because people had lived there again and again for a very long time. When one city was destroyed, later people built a new city on the same place. Over many years, the ground became higher. Archaeologists found layers of cities at Troy. Schliemann also dug at Mycenae. There he found rich graves with gold masks and other beautiful things. He believed that he had found the world of Agamemnon and the Trojan War. One gold mask found at Mycenae is often called the Mask of Agamemnon, but it is probably older than the time of Agamemnon in the later Greek story. The name is famous, but we cannot be sure whose face the mask shows. Schliemann's work was important because he helped show that Mycenae and Troy were real old places. Before his work, some people thought that the stories were only stories. After his work, people could see great ruins and rich graves. But Schliemann also made mistakes. He dug too fast in some places. He broke some old layers while looking for the places he wanted to find. Today, archaeologists work more slowly and carefully. Modern archaeologists record everything. They write where each object is found. They take pictures. They study the soil, bones, seeds, walls, and small pieces of pots. Even a small thing can tell an important part of the story. The Mycenaean civilization was strong for many years. Its kings ruled palace centers. Its workers made goods. Its soldiers fought. Its ships traveled. Its writing kept palace records. But around 1200 BCE, this world changed very quickly. Around 1200 BCE, many Mycenaean kingdoms were suddenly destroyed. Palaces burned, walls fell, people left some towns. The linear B palace records stopped. The old palace system came to an end. This was not only a problem in Greece. At about the same time, many places in the East Mediterranean world had serious trouble. Some cities were destroyed. Trade became weak. Old kingdoms fell. Historians still discuss why this happened. There may not have been only one reason. There may have been war between kingdoms. There may have been attacks by new groups of people. There may have been earthquakes, hunger, or problems with trade. If ships could not bring tin for bronze, making bronze tools and weapons became hard. If there was little food, people became angry and weak. If a palace was burned, workers could lose food and work. A large palace system depends on many things. It needs farmers, workers, roads, ships, trade, leaders, and safety. If several parts fail at the same time, the whole system can fall. Some people may have left their homes because they were afraid. Some may have moved to safer places. Some may have fought for food and land. Some old cities became small villages. Greece entered a period called the Dark Age. The Greek Dark Age lasted for about 400 years. It began after about 1200 BCE. The word Dark Age does not mean that the sun did not shine. It means that historians know less about this time. There are fewer written records. The palace system was gone. Linear B was no longer used. Because writing was lost, many parts of life are hard to know. We do not have many palace tablets. We do not have many long written stories from the time, so the period can seem dark to us. But people still lived in Greece during the Dark Age. They farmed, they raised animals, they made pots, they built homes, they had families, they told stories, they prayed to their gods. Life may have been harder than before for many people. Large palace centers were gone, trade was smaller. Big stone buildings were not made in the same way. Many people lived in small communities. A community is a group of people who live in the same place. In a small community, people may know each other well. They may work together in farming, building, and defense. During the Dark Age, iron became more important. Iron is another metal. In time, people learned to make iron tools and weapons. Iron was not always easy to make, but it became very useful. The use of iron helped begin a new time after the Bronze Age. Bronze still mattered, but iron became more common. Iron tools could help farmers and workers in daily life. During this period, Greek people also moved to new places. Some went to islands and to the west coast of Asia Minor. They looked for good land, safety, and new homes. Over time, Greece began to grow again. New towns became important. Trade returned. People made new forms of art. Later, the Greek alphabet was used. With writing, people could again keep records and write stories. The later Greek world was different from the Mycenaean world. It did not return to the old palace kingship system in the same way. Instead, city-states became important. A city-state is a city and the land around it. Each city-state had its own people, laws, leaders, and army. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and other city-states became important later. The long story of Greece did not begin only with Athens and Sparta. Before them, there were the Minoan civilization and the Mycenaean civilization. These older civilizations helped shape the Greek world. The Minoan people showed the importance of the sea. They built palace centers on Crete. They traded with many lands. They made beautiful art. They used linear A, even though we cannot fully read it today. The Minoan palace at Knossos was one of the most important places in the old Aegean world. Arthur Evans found and dug its ruins in the early 20th century. His work helped people see the great world of Crete. The Minoan civilization had no strong city walls around its main centers. This may show its peaceful sea character. Crete was an island, and the sea may have helped protect it. Its people may have trusted their ships and their sea power. The Achaeans came south into Greece around 1600 BCE. They built the Mycenaean civilization in the Peloponnese and other places on the mainland. Their world was full of small kingdoms. Mycenae and Tiryns were important Mycenaean centers. Both had huge stone walls. These walls show a world that cared about defense and war. The kings lived and ruled from palaces inside strong forts. Mycenaean palace kingship was a system with the king and palace at its center. Farmers and workers gave goods to the palace. The palace stored food and other things. It also gave goods to workers, soldiers, and religious leaders. The Mycenaean people used linear B. They made it after learning from linear A. Linear B was a syllable writing system for early Greek. It was decoded in 1952 by Michael Ventris and other scholars. The reading of linear B was a great step for history. It told us that the Mycenaean people spoke Greek. It also gave us a close look at palace life, with its lists of oil, grain, sheep, cloth, and workers. The Mycenaean Greeks also spread their power toward Troy, on the northwest coast of Asia Minor. Troy was a real place with many old city layers. It was important because it stood near sea roads. Schliemann, a German archaeologist in the 19th century, dug at Troy and Mycenae. His work was not always careful, but it was very important. He helped show that these old places were real and rich. Then, around 1200 BCE, the Mycenaean kingdoms were destroyed. Their palace centers fell. Linear B disappeared. Greece entered the Dark Age, a confused period of about 400 years. The Dark Age was difficult, but it was not empty. People continued to live, work, farm, and tell stories. Slowly, new Greek communities grew. In time, a new Greek world came into being. When we study the Aegean civilization, we see that history is not only about one king or one battle. It is also about farmers, sailors, workers, artists, writers, and families. It is about ships moving across the sea. It is about pots full of oil and wine. It is about grain stored in palace rooms. It is about stone walls on hills and bright pictures on palace walls. It is also about questions. Who were the Minoan people? What language did they speak? What exactly did Linear A say? Why did the Mycenaean palaces fall? Did the Trojan War happen, as the stories say? Some questions have answers. Some questions do not have full answers yet. This is one reason why history is interesting. New ruins, new tablets, or new careful study may teach us more. The old people of Crete and Greece are far away from us in time. But they were people like us in many ways. They needed food, homes, safety, friends, and family. They worked, traveled, made art, and told stories. They looked at the same sea that people can see today. They saw mountains, stars, rain, wind, and waves. They worried about danger. They hoped for good crops and safe travel. The Minoan civilization, the Mycenaean civilization, Linear A, Linear B, Knossos, Mycena, Tiryns, Troy, Arthur Evans, Michael Ventris, and Schliemann are all important parts of this long story. The story begins around 3000 BCE, when the Aegean civilization began under the influence of the Orient. It continues with the rich sea world of Minoan Crete. It continues with the strong palace kingdoms of the Mycenaean Greeks. Then it reaches a time of destruction around 1200 BCE. After that comes the Dark Age. But even after darkness, new life can begin. Greece changed, grew, and later became one of the most important places in world history. So, when we remember the Aegean world, we can remember a simple idea. The sea connected people. Ideas moved from land to land. Writing, art, trade, war, and stories all moved across the East Mediterranean Sea. The people of the Aegean world made a bridge between the old civilizations of the Orient and the later civilization of Greece. Their story is very old, but it is still alive in ruins, art, writing, and stories today.